get them done, that'll be great. But we are live now, so
All right.
let me go ahead and share it to you.
Well, I don't like I'm gonna be able to get this. I can't.
You say you can't get them?
Nah. I don't see. I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't used these but once. That's not it.
Okay. Welcome to the viewers that's already up there, man. Appreciate y'all. We're gonna start the radio show in about 2 minutes. So y'all just be bear with us when I thank y'all for tuning in once again to the UTurn Show. Got a very, very, very good show. We definitely look forward to all this great information, man. This great story. I was listening before the talk. We've been talking for a minute. Good evening, Lennox James Foundation LLC. I guess that's one of your folks right there already.
I'm not sure.
Okay. But what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and switch the microphones to the radio show, so you won't be able to hear me until the show start.
Okay.
But you hear the music and everything, bringing us in the queue. So y'all just be patient with us, and we'll be.
ISLP 1069, Winterville, Aden, Grifton, Southside, Greenville, North Carolina.
I try to be a better man, but folks just don't understand. Trying to do all I can to deal with this addiction in me. Lord, I want to change. I can't stay the same. But the sins that in my vein is trying its best just to kill me.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank y'all for tuning in to another episode this Tuesday's UTurn Show. I am your host, Richard A. Taylor, here on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM, WBISLP in Greenville, North Carolina. Please feel free, if you haven't already, to go to our website, www.wbisawesomeradio.org, and download all of our apps either on the Google Play, the Alexa, or the Apple Store. Also, you can visit us as well on GPAT 23 here on the local Greenville station, as well as you can watch all of our shows on Roku TV. So I definitely want to thank all of our viewers on social media, but also our radio listening audience, man, who tunes in. I really appreciate y'all for all of your interaction with the show. And we're going to get right in, man. I have an amazing guest this day. He's a real estate investor, businessman, entrepreneur, father, husband. We're going to get into his story, man. But first, I'm going to let him introduce himself and let you guys know what he's doing currently. I have Mr. Carlos Parks. How you doing, sir?
I'm outstanding, man. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here as well, man. And let the people know real quick, what are you doing presently right now? What type of things do you have going on?
A little bit of everything, man. Working on my book, finalizing my book right now. But I'm a licensed real estate agent. I'm not just an investor. I am an investor, but I'm a licensed real estate agent in the state of North Carolina. I'm a real estate investor. artist. I'm an accomplished artist. I have my works in a museum right now. I'm a published author. I have published a manual. I'm working on my book right now. My manual is this 10 steps to help one stay out of prison. I
Okay.
wrote this manual to try to help curb the recidivism rate. And
Definitely.
my goal is to get my manual in every institution in America. I really think it's imperative that we provide insight to individuals before they leave prison, to prepare them, especially if it's coming from a perspective of someone who's walked that path. And other than that, I'm just a father, a husband. The majority of my time is spent with my wife and my kids.
Man, that's awesome. And I do have an avenue for you as far as like the North Carolina prisons to maybe, get your publication, in the, I know at least one prison
Okay.
who I'm close with. But I mean, that's amazing. See, I didn't know that about the art and the books and things like that. So you got a lot of definitely things in the fire. And I just do want to shout out my brother Eric McNair, certified music. Says peace and blessings, peace and brother. And I guess Lennox James was your cousin Jerry. He said, cousin Jerry.
Cousin Jenny.
Oh, Jenny, my fault, Jenny. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, my cousin Jenny. Okay, all right. Yeah. She's in
And
Goldsboro.
Alana
Right.
Moore says hi. So we're gonna get into your story because you mentioned prison and
Mhm.
everything. So but I always like to start off in the beginning. Like how was, where did you grow up at? How was your childhood life, and kind of what steps did you take to end up, in that position?
Okay. Childhood was different. Like grew up. My parents were both from Goldsboro, North Carolina, um, and married, moved to California, and at some point that didn't work. My father was in the military, and he got I think he was selling drugs in the military, and that was the end of their marriage. He went to prison, and my mother moved us back to Goldsboro, and from there we went to Virginia early on. So we moved to Lynchburg, Virginia from Goldsboro, but I was in Goldsboro every summer. I was in my grandfather's fields every summer in Seven Springs. Um, Cucumbers, tobacco, strawberries, corn. He raised that. He grew everything. Eventually, it became soybeans. But yeah, I was a country boy in the summer, and I was in Virginia every school year.
So let me ask you, like growing up, I guess working with your grandfather, what types of things did you learn as far as, because I know it was hard work, we probably old school, boy, get out there in them fields and do this, whatever, if you don't want to, or, if you do want to, and did he pay you or anything? What did you get from that gain in hindsight from that experience?
Man, so my grandfather was probably no, it's not probably right. He was the greatest male figure for me growing up, right, in my whole entire life, right. My grandfather, I always looked up to him. So I learned from my grandfather who had, 12 kids, 9 boys and 3 girls. I learned entrepreneurship from my grandfather,
That's what I was
because
about to say.
he didn't work for anybody. It was his farm, and we
Okay.
worked for him. Everybody who worked in the fields worked for my grandfather. My grandfather's name was Dick Parks. Everybody just called him Uncle Dick, right? So my grandfather was a very serious individual, man. He didn't play. So I got a lot. I've always been militant, right? And it came from that farm, that farm
Okay.
life and being raised around Dick Parks, right? So I learned a lot from him. I learned, how to be a man. In order to be a man, you have to see a man. And
Definitely.
I saw quite
Okay.
a few. I had a lot of uncles, right? But of everybody, it was my grandfather.
All right. So at one point, like I said, I think you said you moved to Lynchburg, Virginia, right? With your mom
Hmm.
after everybody split up. So you was up there, and then at one point something happened to cause you to be sent down to North Carolina for what they thought was permanently, but it wasn't. So what happened to get you down to North Carolina?
All right. Well, first, I was born in '73, so I was raised in the '80s, man, and crack hit and crack just decimated the East Coast. So I was raised in that era. I was young. I was just getting off the porch when crack hit. So I got in the game. I started selling drugs early when I was young. All of my friends, it seemed like everybody was doing it. And at some point during that time, I got stabbed. I think I was 16 or 17. I got stabbed trying to help out a little friend of mine. A couple of my friends with some guys were trying to jump him, and I went to assist, and I got stabbed. And when I got stabbed, my mother, she knew I was like in the streets a little, so she sent me to North Carolina to live with my father to Goldsboro. And I think I was 17. It was my senior year, right? The summer before my senior year, I got sent
Okay.
there. So when school started, I went to Goldsboro High, and briefly, I went there briefly, played basketball, and my name is Carlos Parks, but I also had a cousin named Carlos Parks who was like a legend at Goldsboro High because he was like a star point guard, right? So when
Yeah.
I came to Goldsboro High, they immediately saw the name Carlos Parks, and Carlos Parks had just left. My cousin was older; he graduated like years before me, but I really think that had a lot to do with me making the basketball team. That and the fact that the coach was married to my aunt. So
Okay.
Coach Lee, who ended up being my high school basketball coach, was married to my aunt at the time.
Okay, shout out to Coach Lee, man. And actually, that's what that's I think when we first communicated, I thought you were that Carlos Parks because
Yeah,
I never met him because he was that older than me, so
yeah.
I figured you was him. But it's a different Carlos Parks. So you couldn't play football because you got stabbed, right?
Hmm.
So you know did that affect you in any kind of
Oh,
way or?
yes, without a doubt, it affected me. I've been playing football since I was a kid, and it wasn't until crack, the introduction of crack into, once crack started hitting my city, you were able to make money like selling drugs. So there goes football practice. So I played ninth grade, and after ninth grade, it was a struggle because I would have football practice after school, but it might be pumping that day. I gotta go. It's gonna be pumping today. It's Friday. Like I ain't going to practice. So eventually, football was put on the back burner, and football didn't come back until to my attention until I moved with my father in Goldsboro. I'm like, well, I'm not doing anything here. I wasn't selling drugs around while I lived with my father because my father was a disciplinarian like my grandfather, and I just wasn't going to try him like that. So I wanted to play football, but the coach would not allow me to play football because I still had my knife wound in my back that was healing up, and I couldn't practice. And I couldn't
Okay.
convince him of how good I was. So I had to miss out on my senior year playing football.
Yep. And I want to just interject something because he said, when that drug game hit, it was so enticing that things were put before you that you really didn't know the consequences of. Now, once again, you came up in the 80s, I came up in the 90s, probably like, I was 16 to 94. But that same thing, enticed me. I was in sports until I think my sophomore year, and I saw friends who were
Hmm.
coming to school with pocket full of money, gold chains, beepers, and stuff. And I'm like, okay, I can play football, or I can start making some money. So I just
Hmm.
want to, just interject that in there because that was, that enticed a lot of us during that era. So
Yeah.
that was not uncommon. But at one point you moved back to Virginia, right?
Well, so I kind of tricked my father. I told my father during Christmas break that I wanted to go see my mother for Christmas. And he let me go. He was like, "All right, well, you can go see your mother for Christmas, but then you coming right back after Christmas." And I had no intentions of coming back at the time. I knew once I got back to Virginia that I was going to get back in the streets. Like And literally the day I got back to Virginia, my friends picked me up. I was headed to the block, and it's I can't even describe it. The addiction of making money is pretty similar to the addiction of using drugs. You're
Wow.
you're strung out. I was addicted to being able to provide for myself, buy my own clothes, and having lived with my father, it was very different. My father, I had two little sisters. He was a hardworking man, and my stepmother, they worked, but they weren't able to do for me what I was able to do for myself with drug money. It was no, you couldn't compare the two. So I got back and I got what they call getting on your feet. I got on my feet, and by the time Christmas break was up and my mother was ready to send me back to go to my father's, I told her I wasn't going back. And she was like, "Oh yeah, you going back? I know what you've been doing. You've been out there in the streets." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I ain't going back." She said, "Well, you getting out of here?" I said, "Yeah, well, I got an apartment. I got my own apartment, so I had already gotten the apartment ready, and I left.
So
I
at
left, and
17,
that was in 92, 91, 92. Yeah, 91. That was 91. And I never went back to Goldsboro.
so you pretty much was on your own from 17
Hmm.
on in. Now, of course, the drug game has its perils. Everybody goes through it. But and you told me that you had gotten shot right at
Oh yeah,
21, right?
yeah.
So could you give what happened in that situation, if you don't mind delving into that real quick?
So I had been entrenched in the drug game from the age of 14. I got off the porch at the age of 14. So by the time I was 21, I got shot. A friend of mine had done something, and he had robbed somebody, and the people came back to straighten it. And I ended up getting shot, but the bullet was meant for my friend. So
Okay.
I caught what they call a stray.
Okay.
And it was really close brush with life. The guy who shot me really could have finished me. Like when he shot me, I was paralyzed, immediately paralyzed. I couldn't move, and he shot my friend too. He shot my friend bent in the corner, so he shot both of us. My friend was bent in the corner, and he shot him in the leg. But when I looked back, I was on the ground, my stomach. I looked back, and the dude was standing back with the gun, looking at me, and I'm just thinking to myself like, he gonna come finish me, you know. And he didn't. He turned around and he ran away. And I crawled under a house. I pulled myself under a house, and I was bleeding profusely, and I kind of like fell asleep, dozed off or whatever. But in my mind, I could hear people yelling for me. So finally, I just started yelling, "I'm under this! I'm under the house! I'm under the house!" And a friend of mine named Bruce came and pulled me from under the house. He's a big, tall dude. He came and pulled me from under the house, and they rushed me to the ambulance, and to the hospital.
So you ended up being paralyzed because of that shooting for what? For how many?
Yeah.
Like
So the
2 months?
guys he hit me with a hollow point. And the hollow point, they shred, right. So
Hmm.
it went in different directions in my body, and it tore up like it hit my pancreas, my stomach, my vertebrae, and the exit. And I had two exit wounds from one bullet. One exit was in the lower part of my left leg, and the other exit was in my right hip. And it tore me up on the inside. In the vertebrae, it didn't sever my vertebrae; it
Okay.
hit the bone, and I guess it hit the bone in the vertebrae, hit my spinal cord, but it didn't sever it. If it would have
Yeah.
severed it, I would have never walked again. But
Okay.
I was fortunate, and eventually over a period of months or whatever, my feeling came back in my legs, and then I learned how to walk again. They taught
Okay.
me how
So
to walk in the
did
hospital.
you think at the time, like, what was it over? As far as
Oh
like walking,
yeah,
you thought
yeah.
that?
I thought I was gonna be in a wheelchair. I thought I was gonna be, paralyzed forever. I had never seen anybody get paralyzed like and come back, But and I share this right because I don't share this with a lot of people, but there was a nurse who saved me, man, and the nurse, she would come and change my bedpan out because I couldn't use the bath. I couldn't do anything. She had to put the bedpan on it. But she got on me one day because I didn't want to sit up. Like they would come and sit me up in the bed, and I was starting to feel sorry for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And she just like screamed on me one day. Like I guess she saw I was giving up, and she
Yeah.
said, "Well, if you ever want to walk again, you better start sitting up." And she was real stern with me, right? And and that's what I needed, man.
Yeah,
And,
you
and to
needed
this day, I don't know, I don't remember the nurse's name, never saw her again, but that nurse saved my life, right? And ironically, I'm married to a nurse right now.
Okay. Yeah, and I can attest to that because I had brain surgery one time, and just the nurses care. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
They can, nurses who really care. Like, let's say
Yeah,
that, because
yeah,
some of them are
yeah,
just for the check, but some of them really care about the
yeah.
individual. So now normally something like that would deter you, like from the street. Like, did it deter you, or did it make you go a little bit harder?
Nah, I wasn't deterred because I had a son on the way at the time. When I got shot, I had a son on the way. Well, my first child. I don't even know if I knew it was a boy at the time, but I had my first child on the way that I was hoping was a boy. So yeah, I recovered. Uh,
And you
walked
jumped.
around with cane for a while until I got back right. But I was the leader of a group of young men in my neighborhood, right?
Okay.
So it was just like, man, Cat back, and that was my name. I went by a nickname that was Cat. And yeah, I bounced back and took back my position, my role, filled
Okay.
my role.
So so it was just like not, it was just part of the game, right? So you
Yeah, yeah. So it's a part of, yeah, yeah. To It's part of the game. People get shot. People get killed. People have to kill. So and um this is what we sign up knowing. It's pretty much like the military. When you go in the military, there's a chance you're gonna go to war. And if you go to war, it's a good chance that you might die in that war. You know all these things before you sign up. So with the streets, right, we pretty much know it's a you don't have to say it. Like you see your friends get killed, you see your friends get robbed, you see these things happening when you enter into that life, right? So we call it the street life. So going into that life, I pretty much knew I was increasing the chances of these things happening to me. I might not have known the severity, but yeah, yeah, you kind of know.
okay, and we're gonna come right back. We got a station break coming up, so everybody stay with us. We're gonna be right back with more of this testimony. With Carlos Parks, we're gonna get into what kind of led to the transition, which was a brief vacation, or so somewhat brief.
Yeah.
But definitely, y'all stay tuned with us, man. We'll be right back in a couple of minutes. You are listening to Awesome Radio 106.9 FM.
Time and season is everything. It's never too late to learn.
Got to pay some bills on.
At Kim International Bible College. Don't miss your chance to start on the journey you've been waiting for. This is an awesome way to grow and study the Word of God. We offer online day and evening classes. This is not only a great opportunity for leaders in the kingdom, but also an opportunity for any born-again believer who just want to know more about the God you serve. We offer open enrollment, so therefore you can enroll at any time. Don't miss this opportunity. Have you been out of school for many years? No problem. Are you not good with technology? Not a problem. Don't allow your age to restrict you from your goal. We have students of all ages. We're a college that will work with you. That's our motto. We will work with you, but we expect you to do the work. So what are you waiting for? Contact us today. 252-446-0842. That's 252-446-0842. Or visit our website, www.kemibc.com. KEMIBC.com. 252-446-0842.
Lord, I hope this ain't your plan for me to die up in these streets. Oh Lord, can you help me?
And we are back here on 106.9 FM, Awesome Radio, the UTurn Show. My special guest, Carlos Parks, with his amazing story. Just a few comments real quick. My brother Patrick Williams says, evening. What's up, brother? How you doing? Shalonda Exum, I'm sure you know her. Carlos
Yes,
is
my cousin.
very proud of you. Okay. And Felicia Mitchell, hey, how you doing? Your cousin Jen said, wow, this is a powerful testimony. I can't wait to get back to it. Sharice Boyd Jackson says, wow, you are living by the grace of God. So we are going to get right back into the testimony. Um, so you got back into the game. So, but at one point, you got, of course, once again the pitfalls of the game. You were arrested and sentenced to what, 30 years.
Uh-huh.
30 years. So
Yeah.
give us the situation behind that. How did that happen?
All right. So I had a few run-ins with the law when I was, out there, right? And none of them really led to any serious time. A year here, 2 years there, 3 years there. They were all short stints. It wasn't enough to make me consider changing my occupation, right?
Okay.
So I ended up getting caught up in the web of the federal system, and it was very different, right? The numbers were different. They were talking about giving me a life sentence, so I was facing 30 years to life. They wanted me to snitch. I wasn't going to do that. I in like I shared with you earlier, I was selling drugs when my son was born. Where my son is from, in a place called Lenore, Morganton, Hickory, Statesville. I was out that
Western
way.
North Carolina, right?
Yeah, western part of North Carolina. So I was, making a name for myself there. Briefly, I was only there for 3 months, and during that 3 months, I was indicted in '99 for what I did there in '95. I was indicted in '99 and threatened with 30 years to life, and I was like, "There's no way you can give me life, and you don't even have any drugs." Like, I just didn't understand the federal system at the time.
So explain
Right?
to people who don't know how they were able to do that, like you explained to me,
Okay.
earlier.
All right. Well, I was indicted for conspiracy to distribute cocaine base, and marijuana in the Western District of North Carolina. I was indicted with no drugs. I was indicted with what they call hearsay. Somebody said that they bought drugs from me in 1995, and then somebody else said it. So ultimately, they had three people, and I felt like I could beat them in trial, even though people tell you you can't win a trial in the feds.
Yeah.
I was going to try. As I was preparing for trial, more and more people were coming forward saying they bought a key from me, they bought two keys from me, and by the time my trial date came, it was 15 people. Half of them I had never seen in my life, right? But they saw me as an opportunity to get their time decreased, right? By telling on people and testifying against people, you get a time cut. You get a 5K1 or a Rule 35. So these guys were chasing time cuts, and I was
Okay.
their ticket to a time cut.
And so basically they was able to just get on the stand and lie, with no evidence and pretty much help get you convicted. So
Exactly. No evidence.
that's the
Not, I've
danger with
never been caught with drugs in my life.
okay.
Never.
Almost like, the RICO law, as they say,
Yeah,
conspiracy.
it's sort of what. Yeah, but they have to have an overt act, which is something that caused the conspiracy. And the overt act had nothing to do with me. I hadn't even been to Hickory, Lenore. I hadn't been there in 4 years. But they
Uh-huh.
indicted me for a conspiracy that was already started prior to my arrival. They
Okay.
just said I walked into to this conspiracy with guys I didn't know. So it
And
was
so
like a
basically
15-guy
the
conspiracy.
guys who told on you had gotten caught and they just figured, we're gonna get somebody to get our time cut, and you just have
Exactly,
to be
exactly. That's how it worked in the early '90s. I mean, in the late '90s. Um, it was called ghost dope during that time. They were convicting guys for ghost dope that didn't exist. They even went as far as sometimes producing in court fake dope just to show the jurors how much dope it would look like you had. Like if so they would say if somebody said they bought a key from me every month for a year, they would produce, 12 keys of
Okay.
fake dope just to give the jurors an
Perception.
idea of how much drugs this person bought from me. And then you might have another person who bought the same thing. So now you in court and you got all this fake dope, but the jurors are looking at it like, wow, he sold a lot of drugs,
Yeah.
But I mean, I might have been on. It's just it
That's
was a
yeah.
bad system.
That's
They
yeah.
bumped
That's
up
and once
the,
again, we see the perils of this system that we're dealing with.
yeah,
Where those drugs will decimate the community on a lot of hands. That one, decimating the users, of course, but then decimating the lives of guys who saw opportunity when what they're wearing on, or they were just enticed. So you went to they gave you 30 years, right? So you was in the federal system. Explain to the people a little bit, about your time in the federal system, because people think jail is, you go to jail, uh, what was your time like in there? How did you how
it's
did you, cope and survive, for
so
17
the federal system is very different, right? With than the state system. In the state system, you're housed near your loved ones, even though it might be on the other side of the state. You might, if you have North Carolina sentence, you housed somewhere in North Carolina. In the federal system, you can be housed all over the country. I started out. My sentence was in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County. My first place they sent me was Beckley, West Virginia.
Okay,
From
I've been
Beckley,
there.
West Virginia, I went to Cumberland, Maryland. From
Okay.
Cumberland, Maryland, I went to Petersburg, Virginia. All of these are still on the East Coast. Pretty easy for my family to travel to, right? But then from Petersburg, Virginia, I went to Beaumont, Texas.
Okay.
And from Beaumont, Texas, I went to Three Rivers, Texas. From Three Rivers, Texas, I went to Pollock, Louisiana. From Pollock, Louisiana, I went back to Beaumont, Texas. So for 8 years, I was away from the East Coast.
Okay.
It was difficult. Never had a visit for that 8 years. I never saw my family. I missed my son growing. I didn't have a visit for 8 years because of where I was at. It's a serious hardship. It's hard on your family. It's hard on you. That's the difference between the feds and the state. That's one difference.
All right. So we were talking a little bit before the broadcast, man. Explain to the people real quick about the car system and how
Oh,
you was, if you don't mind, because once again, like people, that's so interesting to me. So
okay.
explain about the
Okay.
car
Gotcha.
system in the Fed.
Okay. So in the federal system, we have what we call cars. So a car is run by a shot caller. A shot caller for North Carolina will be over the entire car. Everybody from North Carolina will be in this one particular car. There's one shot caller. Virginia, they have a shot caller. DC, Maryland, they have a shot caller. Each region, right? Sometimes it might be a whole region. You might have a South car, and all of the guys from Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, they might be in one car. It just depends on where you're housed, right? So when I was in Texas and Louisiana, we had an East Coast car. It might be the whole East Coast because we didn't have a lot of East Coast guys there.
Okay.
So you might have a Virginia North Carolina combined car, or you might have like we had a DMV car, DC Maryland Virginia,
Okay.
and these cars are shot. You have a shot caller over the car, and somehow I became the shot caller over my car everywhere I went. Right, it didn't matter where I went. I was always the shot caller, right? And at some point, I became the shot caller over the entire car, over all of the black people. So
Okay.
that's a lot of responsibility. It's politics, right? It's a lot of politics in the feds, and you become like a politician. You're constantly putting out fires. They coming to you with problems. I'll call it Cap. I went by Cap. Man, we need to man this, that, and the third, and it's very segregated in the federal system. You have black, white, and Mexican. These are the three large groups. They don't get along, right? So you have wars. You have smaller groups, Asians and Indians, and whatever, right? South Americans, but the three larger groups sometimes they clash. Sometimes you have all out wars, and
All right.
and
1 second. We're going to get right back. We got to take our last station break, but we're going to be right back because just to learn a little bit more about those cars before we get into the transition. But you are listening to 106.9 FM Awesome Radio.
Partial funding for this program is brought to you by Mitchell's Memorial Funeral Home of Winterville, 2423 E Winter Village Drive. Encourages you to plan ahead now so you will not have to think about it later. 252-702-1880 or 252-917-4420. Mitchell's, a generational name your family have trusted for years. Now it's your turn. Ask for Mr. Donovan Phillips, the funeral home manager, for pre-need arrangements. 252-702-1880 or 252-917-4420. Mitchell's Memorial Funeral Home of Winterville. Thank you for your support.
And we are back here on the UTurn Show. I'm your host, Richard A. Taylor, here with my guest, Carlos Parks. And you are listening to Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. Just a couple of more comments. My elder Mike Best says, great broadcast. What up, Cap?
What's
so I
that,
guess he
Mike?
knows you. So I guess he really knows you. Call you Cap.
Yeah.
So pretty much you was telling me about, like some of the dangers of the car system and people who are coming in, from the streets. How did people accept people coming in? What was the common procedure when you came in when other guys come into prison?
Well, the first thing you had to do when you came on in the institution, well, you would be introduced to your car. So people would ask you, hey man, hey bro, where you from? And if you, let's say you from Indianapolis, oh, okay, all right. These guys, this y'all shot caller right here, and guys will escort you over to your shot caller, right? And your shot caller will automatically embrace you, meet you. Hey, what's up, homie? Where you from? Da, da, da. And you find out these things, and then he'll ask you for your paperwork, right? And paperwork was basically your passport. Paperwork would inform your car whether or not you were a snitch, a sex offender, anything this not accepted in the institution, right? So your paperwork is your marching orders. Like if you don't have your paperwork, if your paperwork not right, you can't be on the yard. You might get stabbed up right there. You might get jumped, or you might get ostracized.
Okay.
Ostracized just means they kick you out the car. Like you can't come around us. We don't accept you. You're vulnerable to the hyenas and the wolves on the yard. So that was what the car system did.
So what the car so if a person was ostracized, like say they got to the and paperwork, I guess is like your sentencing report, your sentencing.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah,
it shows whether you told or testified to get time cut or whether you was a stand-up guy. So exactly. If a person came in and they it was on their paperwork where they snitched or something. So then what could they do? Where would they go?
Well, they would seek protection. They would go sit with the Christians, or they would go sit with the Muslims. And the Christians would embrace them. They would, accept them for whatever their issue was, or the Muslims would accept them if they took their Shahada. So to become a Muslim, you take I guess it's called a Shahada. Like it's like I don't know, a pledge or something. I don't know.
It's sort of like the Christian confessing Jesus Christ as the Lord, probably.
Okay, all right. So I know that was what they had to do in order to be accepted by the Muslims. They had to and a lot of times they did it and they weren't sincere. They did it for protection. They did it for protection. So that was very. Sometimes you would have guys who were ostracized who would just go it alone. Like they wouldn't get with the.
It would be a lone wolf.
They'd be a lone wolf, but you're vulnerable when you're by yourself in the federal prison setting. People will take advantage of you. They will victimize you. I saw it happen a lot. Sometimes they get tired of it and they just check into the hole and they go into protective custody or whatever.
Protective key. So pretty much, basically, you really never had any problems or situations. I mean,
No,
of course
I
you had,
never,
some
no, no.
issues.
I never had any problems. In 17 years, I had one fight, and that's
Wow.
because someone did something that I felt was disrespectful, so I had to beat them up. That was one time in 17 years. I pretty much I have control of my temperament. I used to be a hothead, but I matured in there. I matured a lot. And any situations I was involved with were riot situations. And in a riot situation, you can't choose to sit back if it's a riot with the blacks and the Mexicans. You can't
Okay.
say I'm gonna sit this one out.
Okay.
No, your race is fighting against another race,
Okay.
and the people fighting your race not gonna go for it. I don't have anything to do with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
No,
You
you do. You have black skin, so you're gonna participate.
black.
You know.
So 17 years. Now I know that's a a transition, and I've seen a lot of guys like even come out of 4 years, out of 5 years, but it seems like everybody who goes to the federal system, when they come out, they do pretty good. So, what was your exit plan? What was your how was your transition from doing so much time and being reacclimated to society?
Well,
How did you make that
first
transition?
of all, I did a lot of time, but I was supposed to do a lot more. I had 30 years, remember? So I won my 2255,
So,
which
what
was
is explained in layman's
that's
terms?
that's an appeal. That's an appeal for ineffective assistance of counsel. Basically saying my lawyer was trash, and his because I was harmed because he wasn't capable of defending me properly.
Uh
And
huh.
it took me years of arguing this and filing these motions. And finally, I was granted, right? And ironically, the guy who found it out for me, they always talk about these jailhouse lawyers. These jailhouse lawyers are far better than real lawyers. Believe me, they find things because they have so much
So
time
much
and
time
they
on it.
meticulously go through these cases and study case law. And the guy who saved me was from Goldsboro. He was from Goldsboro, man. He found it in my paperwork. He and a guy from Baltimore, right? Um, they found it. And I kept submitting this argument. I kept getting shot down. And it wasn't until my sister and my grandmother were able to pay for an attorney for me, and which attorney submitted the same argument that they
Mm,
had been submitting, and they accepted it. They accepted it from this attorney, and I'm pretty sure it's because he was a licensed attorney. They didn't want to make it like these jailhouse lawyers found this licensed attorney did, but they reduced my sentence from 30 years to 20 years, which you
okay.
do 85% of your time, which is why I did 17 years and 6 months halfway house.
So how long had you done before they reduced it?
12 years. So
12
12
years.
years in, I finally won my appeal. And when it came back, I had 5 years left to the
Mm,
door. And it really, everything changed for me at that point.
okay.
I went from having a release date of 2026
So
to
you would have
having a
still been
release. I would still be in there. Yeah. My release date was 2026. So I went from having a release date of 2026 to having a release date of 2015,
in there. Okay.
with the halfway house, right? So I had to first um, come to grips with this, right? Because I went from being a long time to being short. I got
Yeah.
5 years left. So
Years.
everything started, I started focusing towards my release. And you know, my back had been broken. Like if you give a person 30 years, like it changes you. Like my back was broken.
Yeah.
Returning was not an option for me. Um, committing crimes was not an option for me. I
Uh-huh.
was reformed. I was reformed a long time
Long
before the
before, yeah,
17
long
years.
before the
Like
30.
yeah, I was reformed when I found out I could get 30 years. So
Yeah.
just that was enough to change me, right? So I started to think at that point, what am I gonna do when I get out? Because up to that point, freedom, like I had a
You
vision
can't see that far.
yeah, like I was gonna get out at the age of 54, I think. And I was like, man, 54. And when I got locked up, I was 24, right? So I'm like that, like 52 was my out. I was gonna get out when I was 52 or something like that. But I'm like, that's an old man. When you 24, 52 seems old. Now
Yeah.
I'm almost 52.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem that old right now. But at
uh,
the time, I was just like, man, I'll be practically dead. So I hadn't even really thought of an exit strategy back then. I wanted
yeah.
to be a personal trainer. I thought that okay, well, I was in good shape. Um, at the age of 52, I could get out in good shape. I
Yeah.
saw a guy. His name was Soup. He was from DC, and he was cut up. He was ripped up at 52. And I told Soup, I said, man, I want to look like you when I turn 52. So that's what I was working towards, was staying physically fit.
Okay. And just a couple more comments real quick. One fight, my mom said that's like a miracle. What's up, Ma? Uh, your cousin Jen said, I'm so glad that you recovered the whole time. Michelle Williams, how you
That's my
doing,
cousin.
Michelle? So proud of my cousin, the life he has made since coming out for himself and his family. And that's what we're going to get into now, man, because you're talking about, so you were released 2015.
Yes, sir.
So, like I said, once again, I know people who get out, they go to the halfway house. They even in the halfway house, they doing stuff they don't supposed to do. They got cell phones. They smoking weed. They
Mhm.
trying to duck the system. So what was your experience in the halfway house?
Well, I went to Durham. I came home to Durham. I was raised in Virginia. I didn't want to go back there
Okay.
because of who I was there. Right. I wanted to go somewhere where not many people knew me because I was starting over, and I had humbled myself. I went from making a lot of money. Right. I hadn't even spoken about that, but I had a lot of money right before
Uh-huh.
my incarceration, and now I was coming home to nothing. I had nothing. I
So
was
you had
starting
nothing in
over.
the stash. And the 30 years took it up.
Nothing. That's
17
gone. It was gone, man. I don't
real
even know where
fast,
it
right?
went. I
Real
don't even
fast.
know where it went. But it was gone. So
Yeah.
when I came home, I was humble. I was humble. I accepted the fact that I was going to be riding the bus. I didn't
Okay.
have a car. I was going to be staying with my mother. I accepted these things,
Wow.
right? But I also had short term and long term goals. My short term goals were so important to me. And from being incarcerated and watching guys mess up, I realized that the major thing that was causing these guys to return was women, right? Um,
Okay.
whether it be sneaking off, to go be with a girl, or it was somehow it was always
Having to
around a
have
girl.
money for the women. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
that
Yeah.
that too. So ultimately it all leads to the same thing. So what I planned and what I said I was going to do is that I was going to continue to abstain from any sexual contact with a woman for 30 days
Okay.
after my release. So this is after doing 17 years. I didn't want to come home and be focused on a woman. For
But a
one, I
lot of
didn't have
people
anything to offer a woman. Like
okay.
I
Wow.
didn't I didn't feel like I was worthy anyway. So I focused on my three short-term goals, and that was getting a license, getting a job, and getting a bank account. Those three things had to be achieved before I could even think about a woman. That
Okay.
that was the farthest thing from my mind.
So in 30, so how long did you stay in the halfway house? What was it
I
like?
was in the halfway house. I don't remember. They really kind of kick you out once you get a job. You paying for bed space even after you're gone. So when I was living with my mother, I still had to pay the halfway house every payday for my bed space, even though I wasn't in there. And
Okay.
that was kind of like they'll have um, four and five people assigned to one bed. That's how they make their money. So I don't remember how long. I do know I rode the bus in Durham for like 6 months before I finally got a car. I was employed immediately. I was a personal trainer. I got my certification while I was incarcerated. And I didn't even mention I'm bilingual. I learned Spanish while I was in there, right?
Okay. Definitely.
Because speaking being bilingual will put me over the top of an applicant. And I
Mhm.
thought about it, I'm like, okay, well, somebody might have the same qualifications as me, but if I'm bilingual, that will make, I'll get chosen over them, because you never know when you need a translator. So I learned Spanish while I was incarcerated. I learned French, and I learned a little Yoruba.
Oh wow. Okay. So and that's one thing I want to commend you on the humility of riding that bus, because once again, like I see a lot of guys come out with pride, saying what they not going to do, and then
Hmm.
okay, I forget this, I'm gonna hit the block back and get me some money up real quick, and it doesn't stop there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
Even if that's your goal, okay, well now I'm just gonna get on my feet. It doesn't stop there. So when I commend you on the fact that really took the time to say, hey, I'm gonna ride this bus.
yeah.
Kate Sale Smith, I said, do you go back and talk to inmates on their way home? Uh, Real
I
question.
do, I do. So since coming home, I became a speaker. And one of the places I speak, I've spoken at multiple prisons, right, throughout the state of North Carolina, South Carolina. I haven't spoken in Virginia yet, and I'm
Okay.
from Virginia, and I've been trying to get in Virginia prison systems to speak. I will speak anywhere I'm invited to speak. I'm a paid speaker, so I'm a TEDx speaker. So yeah, I've spoken in prisons, and that was one of my goals. Um, you know what they say? Don't forget where you came from. I will never forget what I made it out of. Like, I will never forget, because there are some guys who aren't ever leaving that situation, right? They have life sentences, and I left a lot of them. I have a lot of friends who had life sentences, right?
Hmm.
And I'll never forget them. So yeah, I try to go back and use my story to motivate. So yeah,
Definitely.
thank you, Kay Michelle, for that question.
Um, Once again, Felicia Mitchell says you humbled yourself in the sight of God, and He lifted you up. Wow, smart, true. He has accomplished a lot since his release by the God's grace and mercy. Very intelligent and an artist. Yeah, we're gonna get into that too. Beautiful testimony, says Alana Moore. So, Chrissy McMillan, I guess she's talking about women. Yeah, we can be a distraction. Well, so, um, with the once again, I just commend you on that, because it's a lot of and just to let you know, like, he reached out to me when I was speaking at a Free James Richardson campaign, so he definitely is concerned about the brothers inside, and being an avenue and an inspiration to them. So how okay, so now you're working as a personal trainer. So how did you get into real estate? Because once again, it's only 7 years ago. So from
Yeah,
7
yeah.
to now, you've done a lot. So
Well,
um
I've had multiple jobs. So I went from a personal trainer. My second job after and I got the job as a personal trainer because I was bilingual. They
okay.
were letting their Latino trainer go, and they needed somebody to take over his caseload. So I got all of his clients who were Spanish speaking and they didn't speak English. I got all of them. I worked as a personal trainer for a while. Then I went from a personal trainer to a tilapia salesman. I sold tilapia, which is a type of fish. And ironically, I worked for a guy. He owned a tilapia farm in Cedar Grove, North Carolina, a black guy, and he
Okay.
needed a bilingual salesman. Never
Okay.
been a salesman before, but sold drugs my
You
whole
have
life,
been a
so
step.
I feel
Yeah.
like I can sell
It's
anything.
natural.
And
Yeah.
I went in there and I impressed him in the interview, and he hired me. So I worked for Taylor Fish Farms for a while. From there, I
Uh,
went and I became a security guard
okay.
in Durham, in the Village Shopping Center, at a place called Compare Foods.
Okay.
Latinos, they call it Compare. But I was a security guard there for a while. That's where I was reintroduced to who is now my wife. We started dating while I was a security guard. She was living in Greensboro. I was living in Durham. The long distance thing didn't work. I couldn't stand being apart from her. So I was like, look, I'm moving to Durham. I'm moving to Greensboro,
Okay.
because she had a better job than I did. I was like, okay, I can get a job in Greensboro. Got a
Okay.
job in Greensboro in a warehouse. I was what they call a keg man. I threw kegs. I'm a big guy, so I threw kegs into these boxes. They got loaded on trucks, and I drove
Uh-huh.
forklift. And eventually, I worked in mental health. I became a peer support specialist.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure you know what that is. I worked
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
field of
I'm
mental
on it.
health.
Well,
Yeah, I worked in mental health for probably 2 years, and through that, I became a housing specialist for individuals with mental illnesses. I became what they call a TCLI specialist, and I started working with individuals in the TCLI program.
Okay, so were you helping them get housing?
I helped them secure housing with the government money. The government paid for their housing
because they have mental health issues.
Yeah, and the state of North Carolina had lost a lawsuit, and they had to house individuals and pay for their housing if they wanted it, because they had been housing people in mental health facilities like Cherry and Oberry and all over the state, and they lost a lawsuit because of that. And I was one of the people who worked with these people in the community to make sure they were acclimated properly and they learned skills of daily living. And from there, I learned I seeked into real estate because I was working with property managers, and I felt at a disadvantage.
Just one second. We got to end the radio program, but I thank y'all for listening on the radio. We're gonna stay live on Facebook, but join us next week on 106.9 FM Awesome Radio.
Lord, I need.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, okay. So you started dealing with the property managers, and that's what got you into real estate.
Yeah, I felt outgunned. I didn't have enough information. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have enough information, so I wanted to learn more about housing, property, and in doing so, I decided, you know what? Let me go ahead and get my real estate license. And I didn't even know if I could get a real estate license as a felon. And when I found out I could, I went ahead. I passed tests. I'm good with tests, right? So I took the test, and my mother was a realtor, and she told me it was a hard test. That just made me want to take it more. I have an uncle; he's a realtor in Fayetteville. My mother's a realtor in Goldsboro, and I passed it, man. And I haven't looked back. I haven't looked back since, man. I fell in love with real estate.
How long ago was that?
I've been a realtor now probably 3.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and then sooner or later you started buying your own properties.
Yes. My wife and I have invested in our first. Well, we own our house, but then we decided to buy a rental property. So we bought a rental property, and now we're about to close on another rental property. Probably next week. It looks like it's gonna be next week. We should have closed already. Ran into some obstacles with the title, but now we're set to close now.
Okay. And also, like I said, like she mentioned artists, and actually I was going through your page and I didn't know it was your art, but I saw you, standing by a couple of pieces. I thought you would maybe been at a museum or something. So how did you, I guess, start, marketing your art?
Well, I started painting while I was incarcerated, and I saved up a lot of paintings. I sent a lot of paintings home to my mother. Excuse me, and I knew those paintings were going to be worth some money, right? So when I came home, I started getting my paintings ready to sell, and I sold the first one for $250. It was worth way more, but I sold it. I needed money, and I sold it to a guy, a friend of mine now. He owns a barbershop in Durham, 40 Below Barbershop. I sold it to my friend Lynn. And that was the start, man. Like I realized I had something. I've always been an artist, but painting wasn't my forte. I learned how to paint oil paintings and acrylic paintings while I was incarcerated. So now that's what I do. I have a masterpiece sitting over there right now that I'm going to actually sell as an NFT.
You said it's a Nefertiti?
It's an NFT.
Oh, okay, NFT.
Yes, I'm gonna sell it as an NFT. This is probably my greatest painting ever. I don't have any like near that I might have one, but most of them are in the basement or even at a gallery.
All right. And so look, also you see the banner behind him. Give the people a little bit of information on that. What is that? Is that
so
Aaliyah's Hair Fund?
I'm an entrepreneur, so that's one of the businesses I started with my daughter. My daughter's name is Carlia. She's 4, and my wife is a nurse, so my wife is a travel nurse. Right, she started traveling, and she was out of town, and I had my kids, so I'm watching my daughter. I had to do her hair, and I had to put her hair up in a bun. She had braids, and I couldn't figure out how to hold it the way I wanted. Um, uh, I had tried one of these little things that my wife had, but they didn't hold it right. So I called my wife. I asked her, did they have anything? And I described what I needed, right? And she was like, no, they don't have anything like that. So I'm like, okay, well, I look it up, and I couldn't find anything like that. So I decided to create it. I came up with the idea. I wrote the diagram and all of that, and I had my cousin Teresa in Goldsboro. She's a seamstress. She actually did my prototypes for me.
Okay.
And from the prototypes, I created a product.
Hair bun.
I copyright. I got a copyright for the name, and I started a website, and then I put the products into production. So these are called hair bun covers, and they go on hair buns. Like I got different sizes, different colors, different materials. So it's for girls to wear on their bun. A lot of girls like to wear their hair up in a bun, and it's specifically for the buns, but it's not a bonnet. You don't sleep in it.
Yeah, I don't like bonnet.
It's a part of your outfit. You buy the kind that that you can match with your clothes. Or like if you go on my site, it is CarliasHairBunCovers.com. And they can shop, pick their sizes, and the smalls come with two in a set, because a lot of little girls like to wear
the two.
But, but I don't know what they call the two little things, but the smalls come in two.
Man, that's awesome, man. Because and now that you said it, like I can't recall ever seeing anybody, like, of course we see the bonnets all the time, but people wear that, to cover their bun, but like actually have the joint. That's a good idea, man. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. So
thank you. And that just fell in my lap, man. That just fell in my lap.
Yeah.
And I also I have my own page, right? CarlosParksSpeaks.com. They can go on my page for speaking if they need speaking, or to purchase the manual that I was talking about. They can purchase that on CarlosParksSpeaks.com. Or real estate, if you're interested in real estate, my website is YourNCHomePro.com.
Your NC Home Broker
Pro. YourNCHomePro.com. That's my website.
Okay. And when you get off and you see the video, you can put all of that in the comments.
Okay.
When you finish. But Alana Moore said this man is an anomaly. God bless him. Lena Taylor said, wow, that's awesome. I guess that's towards the hair bonnets. And painting of Cousin Dick was always my favorite. Cousin Dick, I guess that's
my grandfather.
That's your grandfather, definitely.
Yeah.
So with that book though, because that's my kind of passion about either preventing young guys from going to prison, or helping guys who are already in this understand the importance of staying out. So without giving too much about it, like what are some of the points that you touch? What do you think is important as far as it goes?
I'll give you a couple of the chapters. The prelude is called Living with an F. We call a felony an F, right? It's like a report card. You get an F, you failed the grade, and it's pretty much getting an F in life. You failed, right? But you can always bring that grade up in school. You can always bring that F up to an A, and it's pretty much the same thing in life. Yeah, I might have an F. I got an F, right? But I started over.
You had a grade
up. I brought my grade up. Yeah, so that's one of the things, because some people think that the world is over with because they got an F. No, it's not over. You learn from it. You correct yourself and you start over. And another one, I'm not going to give you all of them. One of them is called Humble Yourself, right? Yeah. Humility is important with reentry, right? You got to humble yourself. You have to humble yourself like someone said, you got to humble yourself before God. I like to say you have to humble yourself before everybody. And another one.
Give me one more. Don't give us any
more. I'm gonna start with get married. Get married.
Okay.
And I'm gonna tell you why I think that's so important, right?
Okay.
We like to talk about being independent, right? But we weren't made or created to be independent. Like there's a woman and a man, right? There's the feminine and masculine, right? You aren't complete until you join the two, right? Once you join the two, you have a partner. So it's better to go through life with a partner than go through life alone. I think that's a integral part of reentry. Reentry, like at some point, you need to work towards and focus on getting a partner because you want your partner to be strong where you're weak, and you be strong where they're weak, right? That's what I believe, and like everybody's going to have a different approach to reentry, and no one is like nobody's is better, no one's is wrong. Like if you ask me how to get to Charlotte, I'm gonna tell you how to get to Charlotte from where I'm at.
Okay.
You're not gonna go the same direction from Goldsboro. You're not gonna go the same way to Charlotte from DC. You're not gonna go the same way to Charlotte from California. So we all going to the same place, but where we start is important on how we get there. So everybody not gonna start from the same station in life that I was in. So me talking to a person who's traveling from another direction is not gonna hit home with them. But for some people are gonna gravitate to this because they're traveling in the same direction and they're starting from the same base.
That's great, man. Mike Best says, "This is awesome. You are telling the truth, bro." Cynthia Gerald says, "I'm
That's
proud of you,
my
nephew."
aunt. That's my
Son,
aunt.
Cynthia. And then my mother says, "Get married." Of course, always room for improvement. So, what was your biggest challenge? Because once again, you made it look so easy. So what do you think your biggest challenge was in
Wow.
the
My biggest challenge
in the
in
reentry?
reentry, man, my biggest challenge was probably reconnecting with my son. When I got incarcerated, my son was 3. When I came home, he was 20.
Mm.
So I missed out on his entire youth, his whole like growing up. Like he remembers me from visitations, And remember, there was a period where I went 8 years without a visit. That 8 years, my son, um, that was probably the most important part of his growth, and I wasn't there. So to our relationship and bonding that, right, and mending that was probably the hardest challenge for me because I didn't know where to enter. Like he's a grown man now. My son had children by the time I came. He had one son and he had 2 sons, and one was born 2 months after I was released. So I didn't know where I fit in. And with my son, he told me he always every time he was around me, he was a child again. Like he didn't he it was hard for him because he missed out on his father. So that was my
So
hardest.
how is it now? How's that relationship blossomed now?
It's up and down. It's like I'm like my grandfather. I'm a disciplinarian. I'm stern. I don't beat around the bush with much, right? I call it how I see it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm kind of hard. I'm kind of hard on people, right? So my son is a lot like his mother. So he's more of a feeling type, right? Sensitive. So not sensitive, but he feels more. And really, like I'm not a hugger. Like it's just I have a rough exterior,
Yeah,
right? And I think it had a lot to do with me being where I was at. You
yeah.
had to
You had to.
present a certain way in order to make it. My job was to come home and live through my ordeal. And if changing myself to become harder, and that was one of the things, and that's what we were desensitized during our time in there. And to come home, like I don't deal with um sensitive matters well. I don't like I guess that's one of the side effects of my incarceration. I'm not very um
Sensitive.
feeling like I don't have it. Like I'm trying to develop it, and that's probably the hardest part.
Have you because I know this is kind of like taboo. Because I always say, people who've been in the streets or even the prison have some semblance or some degree of PTSD.
Oh
Always,
yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
Have
yeah,
you,
most definitely.
have you ever endured or underwent counseling, or have it ever been suggested with you? I haven't neither, but I'm just asking.
I have, right, because I work in mental health. That was a part of our job, right? What did we call it? Self help or something like we had to speak with you know, who were my coworkers. But yeah, we saw therapists. I forgot what they called it. It was a part of our job, like because we had to. They didn't want you to take on too much of what you were working around all the time, right? So we worked around a lot of situations. I've had clients who died, OD, and like these things kind of get to you. So whenever something is like that, like your supervisor, your QP would be like, "Hey, Carlos, you need to go in and see." I forgot what they call. They called
Yeah,
it something. But yeah, I have. I
but you
have.
never actually sought it out for yourself, though.
No, I haven't.
Not
I
saying that you
haven't.
don't need it, because, like I said, I think you're fine. You know what I
No,
mean?
I haven't. I'm not. I think everybody could use some. I've never done it.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to it, but not. I never have. Um, Never found the need, right? Because I'm extremely strong-minded, and I guess if I felt that I needed, I would go. If somebody told me, "Hey, you need to go get counseling," yeah, but no one's ever told me that. So yeah.
So, and so once we talking about peer support, OD, and drugs, and I know one of my habits that I developed, I never did a long time, but one of my habits I developed was, drugs and alcohol. In
Hmm.
your time, in the streets, whatever, did you indulge in that? And if not, how did you avoid, getting caught in the pitfalls of that?
Yeah, but man, like I have a super like I have like I don't I can't even explain it, right? I'm just not. I don't get addicted to things like I think I used to drink. I was not a good drinker. I used to smoke weed, and where I'm from in Virginia, we used to smoke what they call boat.
Oh,
Love
love
boat.
boat.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah. I indulged in that. I think I even did PCP. Like I was young and we would try anything, but I wasn't addicted to anything. It wasn't anything I couldn't just say, you know what, I ain't doing that no more. So when I got incarcerated, they had everything in there. I just decided, man, I ain't messing with that stuff anymore. I was done. Even though, during the early part of my incarceration, I was still selling drugs in prison, in the feds. So heroin, weed, so pills, yeah, everything is in there. So yeah, I
Now
just never
that
indulged.
always, of course, you know, fascinated me. How things can happen like that. And not to get too deep into it, but how does that happen? If you can elaborate without
Oh, it's attainable. Because like in the feds, like the feds guys have money. You got millionaires in there. You got guys who were extremely successful in the streets, like quite a few millionaires. From drugs. So those guys come in there and they can entice a CO. You can
okay.
entice somebody. And the Mexicans, they were extremely very creative when it came to getting things. So they were creative. So I'm not gonna give up any secrets, but they
Yeah,
have ways. They have ways yeah, yeah. It'll be pretty hard to just stop getting things in there, and especially now, like it's yeah. They have everything in there,
yeah,
like
they got
real
phones and
street
everything.
alcohol, cell phones, everything. You can get all of that in there.
Yeah. So what made you stop? Like you said, as far as when
Just
you was in
me.
there.
Just
Huh?
me. Just
Just
I
you.
just decided I want, like I say, like and I know everybody can't do that, right? But with me, I can just stop. I have uh, like a lot of willpower, mental strength. Right? I can just stop anything. I started smoking cigarettes one time just to show my friends I could stop. I smoked Newports for a month because
Uh,
I told them they was weak. God can't stop smoking. I started smoking just to show them I could stop.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know you. So you play chess, right?
Oh yeah, I love chess.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah.
looking for the chess set right now?
Yeah,
Ain't
I'm
you?
looking for my board. It must be downstairs.
Yeah. We got to get it on. Then we'll see what you got, man.
Yeah.
Um. But yeah, man, that's an amazing story, man. You got amazing testimony, and I'm just so impressed. Um. What would you tell young guys? You know what I'm saying, before they go that route? What would you what
Um,
do you tell them?
so coming from me, I have to tell them what I went through, right? So
Hmm.
right now my mentor is Joe Dudley, right? Joe Dudley Sr. is my mentor. And I like to mentor youth because, Mr. Dudley, he always tells us, we should mentor, talk to these young kids. And he really loved my story. I tell him what I went through, right? Because, like Mr. Dudley says, what is it? A wise man learns from his own mistakes, but a genius learns from the mistakes of others, right? So
Okay.
my mistakes, I want people to be wise enough to use what I went through, not to go through the same thing. And one of the things I do is I educate them on what's possible. I educate them on other routes. So it's hard to tell a child or a kid not to do something without telling them what they should do, right? So you have to have a solution. Yeah, we can point out the problem all day. I like to give them solutions, and my solution, is of course real estate, and not just real estate, entrepreneurship, and training your mind because I'm very big on the power of your mind, your subconscious mind. So I would like to empower youth by educating them. I think education helps to empower youth. Like we've tried a lot of different methods over the years. We've tried a lot of things, right? And those things don't seem to be working. So when are we going to try something new?
Yeah.
I want to be a part of that new direction, trying something new.
Yeah. And so how do you educate them on, the culture? Because, and what I mean by that, because I was talking to one of my, one of the people I contract with, and she was talking about P Valley. I'm sure you heard the show P Valley.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, and she asked me that. I said, "No, I never watch it. Like, I heard enough about it that I know I don't want to watch it."
Yeah.
Like, you probably won't. But there is this show on Tubi called, I forgot the name of the show. But she said, well, yeah, this show is good. It got the strippers, you got the drugs, it got the money, you got the gangsters, our culture. And I immediately stopped and was like, well, that ain't our culture. You know what I'm saying? Why I was like,
Yeah.
I said that's not our culture though. So it seems that we have accepted the most base part of society because once again everybody does drugs, everybody, but it seems that we're the only group of people that's latch on to that and celebrate it and say, okay, well, this is us. No, this is how thing is. What do you do to kind of, or what can you say? Because that seems to be it. The music all glorifies killing your brother, and screwing chicks, and selling drugs, using drugs. How can you get a culture, or get a group of people to renounce what has been placed upon them?
Well, I think that what you just said was spot on, right? Like your perspective is needed, right? But my perspective is coming from that culture which is being glorified in music, in movies, in television shows, right? They try to glorify that culture. So coming from that culture, I'm a result of that culture, right? So
Mhm.
everything that happened to me negatively was because of that culture. Everything that happened to me positively happened after I came away from that culture, right? So I can't speak on I can't tell you anything good about that. Everything for me is mathematics, right? So
Okay.
there's an increase and a decrease based on your performance. So certain things increase your chances of incarceration. Certain things decrease your chances. So when I speak to youth, I talk about the increase and the decrease. So when you start selling drugs, you just increase the chances of going to prison or being murdered, right? Not only that, you've increased the chances of your family being harmed, taken hostage, because you have all this money and you're on Instagram waving 30 and $40,000 worth of cash. All you're doing is letting the wolves know, hey, this is where the money is at. Come get it. So I talk to them like that, right? I let them know from a different perspective, right? Because I was once a wolf, right? So I was once a predator, right? So I know how predators think. I know how this culture is yeah, they are glorifying it in the music. They're glorifying popping pills and Zans and all this other stuff. And I let them know. I like to point out the addicts that I grew up with, right? So these Zans and everything like that, they're just gonna lead them to stronger addictions. Heroin, which is a lot harder to kick. These opiates, this like it's I don't sugarcoat. I
Yeah.
like to show them the bad side. I like to show them a mirror, right? And I also get them to think about their future. Like, where are you going with it? What's the end game? When you ask them a question that they haven't asked themselves, it makes them reflect and think harder. So I like to ask them, what's your end game? What's your out? How much is enough? You don't ask yourself these questions when you get in the game. I
Yeah.
never had an amount that was going to stop. Like I
Yeah.
didn't have a goal I was going to reach. So if you don't have a goal, you're never going to get where you're going. You
Mm.
don't have a goal. You don't have a
Oh,
target. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of these young kids, they just need to be directed. Give them a target, give them something to aim at. They'll have a direction. They don't have direction. They're just walking around. They're just moving. They don't have direction. You know.
yep. That's powerful. What's the end game?
Yep. What's
Uh,
the end game?
Mike Best said, as men, we have to create a culture.
And Mike is exactly right.
Definitely, definitely. And being a positive example. Yeah, create a culture. That's one thing that I see, Mike doing, like from hands on. Like I see him creating a culture. And that's what, men have to do as men. Like we are the backbone of the society, but it seems like, a lot of times we have left the rearing and the guidance of the children, to the mothers, a lot of times. So what is your perspective in, teaching guys about, being present, or being, a father, regardless of, the circumstances.
Look, I'm gonna have to say this, right? You good at what you do, man. Because you don't even realize it, right? You're being led, right? You're asking all the right questions, right? So I was fortunate enough to be placed on the board of an organization called Fathers United.
Fathers
And you
unite.
just asked that question not knowing that, right? So I'm on the board of an organization, Fathers United. It's out of Virginia. And the founder of the board hasn't been very active. So I'm about to reach out to him like look, if you're not going to drive this ship, let me drive it, because I feel like Fathers United as a name, it just says so much. Because as fathers, we need to come together collectively, right? So there are some of us who are active fathers, right, in our children's lives, and we understand the importance. And then there are some of us who don't know what it means to be a father. Like I said something early, right? I said in order to be a man, you have to see a man, right?
Definitely.
So you don't your example is going to determine how you turn out, right? I was fortunate. I had a very strong example, right? My grandfather. My grandfather was an example for not just me, for a lot of the men in my family, right? So like he was the it for us. So we know how to be fathers. I love being a father. Like when I came home, I wanted a child. Like a lot of guys don't come home wanting a baby. I wanted a child.
Mm.
My wife is younger than me because I needed to find a woman who was of childbearing. Right? Somebody like I was 41 when I came home. I didn't want to come home and be with a girl who was might be at risk, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you know, like everything I did was very, very strategic, right? I planned it, man. I love kids.
Yeah,
I love kids, right?
I can
So,
tell.
yeah, and that's why, like, when this guy asked me to be on the board of Fathers United, it was a no brainer for me. Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. And I feel like me and Mike go way back, right? So I know, the type of father he is. His brother got 10 kids, so I know the type of father he is. Most of the men I knew
Are great fathers,
are
right?
good fathers, are great
Me
fathers,
too.
right? So I really feel like we need to come together. We need to come together and teach the youth, because some of these younger kids, they don't know what it is to be a father.
Yeah, definitely. Sierra Council says, "Hey, bro, what's up, sis?" I guess that's one of your peoples.
No.
Oh, that's one of my peoples.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, what's up, sis? And Felicia mentions, thank you so much. Rich is the best host ever, full of wisdom, knowledge, and questions.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your watching. But it's funny you say that, right? Because I have another brother. Shout out to Terrence Thornton. I don't know if you know him, but he has also an organization called Faith for Future Fathers. And we were just talking about this last night. It was like Faith for Future Fathers. He was one of the targeting, the young men, Faith
Okay.
Future Fathers. But then as we were talking, I was telling him about a situation that, that a guy was having with his child. He was like, no, we might need the target men as well, because we as men sometimes don't have that support. Oh, there he is right here. Okay, Terrence, what up, Terrence? In order to be a man, you have to see a man. Got it. So yeah, shout out to Terrence Thornton. But see, a lot of times we don't have that support system, because men, we go through a lot of times a lot of things that sometimes, like you say, we are not sensitized to express.
Yeah.
So sometimes we don't talk about those things that kind of weighing us down. So I think it's how important do you think it is will men have that support group, not just dealing with fatherhood, but just everything in life?
I think it's very important, man. And I don't have it. I'm not a part of a male support group. I don't know of any, right? So yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to joining one. And while you're asking, right, anything that you have going on, like, I would love to be a part of it. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to be included, right? So
Vice versa.
I'm kind of like isolated out here, right? I don't have any friends out here in Greensboro, anything, right? But
That's I found since I've been when I left the recovery program, I found that isolation is a good thing, though. A lot of
okay,
times,
yeah,
but not too much. But definitely, I got some things to be a part of. And if anybody don't know, see, I was on the call for the Free James Richardson campaign before the broadcast started, and he immediately was like, "Yo, bro, let me in. I want to help." You know what I'm saying? So he's definitely real serious about that thing. So we definitely can get everything set up. So we all put an event together so I can support it. I think we will. I think I just have the right event, because I've been thinking about getting brothers like myself and himself together to really go out and as a team, and get with some organizations, some youth groups, some disadvantaged groups, just really share, because like your story is amazing, bro. Your story is amazing, and how you just survived all of that. I remember back in the day when they would tell the males, "Boy, don't cry." No support when they were going through. Yeah, you're right. We were taught, not to bottle things up, and then sometimes that comes out. Somebody told me one time, men react with anger and violence. They're when they feel an emotion, their first reaction is oftentimes anger and violence. So I think the mental health aspect of being a man needs to be addressed, and find out that it is human, to have those feelings. And once again, like you said, you just admitted it, like, hey, I ain't got nobody out here, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, we're definitely gonna do something, man. And you mentioned once again, like I said, the thing about you said you didn't snitch now, which I commend because you don't snitch when you know you've done something wrong, right?
Yeah.
So but there's a thing where in the community is don't snitch. Now, of course, I agree with that when okay, say me and you do a crime, right? And the police come get me, and I'd be like, no, well, Carlos was with me too. Now that's
That's snitching.
that's
That's
snitching.
snitching. Yeah.
But when you like a regular community member of the community, and then somebody just goes out wilding and shooting, and they kill a little innocent baby, and everybody knows it.
That's not snitching.
Yeah, please explain. Please
So
explain.
there is a very there's a very fine line, right? A witness is not a snitch, right? A witness is not a snitch because a witness was not participating in the crime, right? If like you said, if you and I go to rob a bank, you get caught, I get away, and you tell the police, "Oh, well, Carlos was with me." That's snitching.
That's snitching.
Yeah, so that's snitch because we were doing something together.
Exactly.
Right? We were both breaking the law, right? And I got away, but because you got caught, you want me to be with you, and that's snitching. And the reason I say I didn't snitch, right, is because I didn't want to take any other fathers away from their families and their children, right? Somebody was taking me away from my family and my child, right? I didn't want to do the same thing. I don't think that's helping the situation. Yeah, even though, and see, they entice people by offering them, they incentivize snitching. Okay, well, you have 20 years. If you snitch, we'll give you 10. So if you get a 5K1, which is snitching before you get sentenced, you get your time cut in half. That's incentivizing telling. But what it's also doing is it's causing certain people to lie about situations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I have a problem, right? Because they accept these lies because they want the conviction. So, but that's another story. I don't want to go into that, but
I tell people
we'll save that for another one.
The justice system is not about justice; it's about conviction. They get and it's a conflict of interest when you are a prosecutor seeking justice, but you get promoted by how many convictions you get.
Yeah. And your
people don't understand that. Yeah, your conviction
rate. Yeah, you don't want it to drop below 90%.
Judges get promoted or incentivized on how many man hours they sentence people to.
Yeah,
but people don't understand that there's a double-handed system. With this thing, there's an industry, an overall prison industry that and now of course once again we're not advocating drug selling or any crime because of course we all know the implications and the ramifications of that, but we do have to realize the way things have been structured to
the prisons field.
But prisons field. Anytime prisons are privatized.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? We have to realize, okay, well, this is a for-profit system, and somebody
has on the stock market. You can even invest in prison industry.
Definitely. And prison labor.
Yeah. But that's another story. That's a long one right there.
Yeah, that's a long one. We go. I got to have you back, bro, because it's a lot we didn't get into. But man, it's so much more. So what how has the marriage and the new fatherhood been a blessing to you?
Man, it's so I look at it like this, right? Ultimately, we're all seeking happiness, right? And I couldn't be any happier, right? Like I'm like overjoyed with my life as it is, right? So I of course I'm growing, I'm growing financially, which is not super important for me, right? My family is, right? Being able to provide for my family. So the better off I am, the more I can do for other people, right? Because what is it? What's the saying? The only debt we owe for our time on this planet is service to others, right? So that's all I want to do, right? I just want to be able to provide for not just my immediate family, but my, you know, my distant family, my grandkids and my cousins, and support my cousin. I'm going to my cousin's court date tomorrow. I'm going to support my cousin. You know, like she's going through some things, and she needs to know that her family's going to be there for her. Regardless of what she's done. So yeah, that's my goal, and I feel like I did enough bad prior to my incarceration, and right now I feel like I'm even Steven with the universe. Karma has reversed itself. At first, I was, whatever energy you put into the universe is the energy you receive, you get back, right? So I had put a lot of negative energy, a lot of bad energy into the universe, and after paying my debt to society, now I'm paying my debt to my family, everybody that I let down. So my accomplishments are me showing people, like man, like my grandmother was like super proud of me, and she wasn't when I was incarcerated. You know what I'm saying? So my family wasn't able to talk about me. Like like they don't want to say the word, probably ashamed, but come on, man. Like I was incarcerated. But now I'm trying to reverse that. I'm trying to reverse that, that stigma, by making up for what I did. I don't want to continue to, be an embarrassment, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You're doing a great job, and I know you're going to continue to do a great job. Thank you for your awesome testimony and transparency. May God continue to bless you and your family. Ms. Parks, you are a good example. God bless you in your every endeavor. Rachelle Williams said, once again, sowing and reaping. Great show, Nicole Parks Vickery.
That's my little sister.
Oh, what's up, little sis? How you doing? Good to meet you as well. So yeah, man, definitely, man. We're gonna wrap it up. But if there's anything, is there anything else that you would like to leave for the audience until next time when we have you on?
No, all I want to say is go watch my TED Talk because my views are not as high as I want. It's great. I got more Facebook friends than I do views of my TED Talk. So go look at my TED Talk.
And that's on YouTube?
It's on YouTube, or you can find it on my page at carlosparkspeaks.com. Try and get my numbers up.
Okay, yeah, and me too. So I'm going to like and subscribe to the Taylor House Publishing YouTube. Go to YouTube, and it's only a quick button. Just subscribe. You ain't even got to like. Just subscribe.
And it don't cost you nothing to subscribe.
It don't cost you nothing, man. Just hit that little red word, man. Say subscribe. Yeah, that because this is awesome content, man. We never know who this broadcast could help, man, and somebody can see what he went through and still be here today with the beautiful wife, beautiful family, couple of businesses, a book, art, everything, man. Like this is what it's about. This is what the UTurn Show is about. It's showing that, and there's nothing greater than us that you said. Well, you said a lot of great things, but when you said I started with an F, which is a felony, but you can always bring that grade up. I never had it put like that. I never heard it put like that. But yeah, that's a jewel. So definitely go and get, what is it, the 10 points to stay out of prison? What is it again?
It's called the 10 steps to help one stay out of prison. And you can find it on my page at carlosparkspeaks.com.
Yeah, we're gonna get that. We're gonna see if we can't get that in some facilities sometime soon, because I think I had Warden, Emory Warden out here, and he was at what was he at? Carteret. I had him on the show, so he's okay. One more question, I'll let you go, but because you mentioned you was on the East Coast, Virginia, Maryland, West Virginia, which is kind of borderline. I know, I've been to Bucky, but I actually been to Beckley when I was in the recovery program for a revival. So I know it ain't many of us up there,
No.
And Beaumont, Texas, and those places. So how was it different as far as I know the prison politics doesn't change, but how was it with the guards? When you go to those southernmost states, or were they a little harder, a little biased, or was it just the same everywhere?
Well, in Beckley, yes. If you go to those mountains of West Virginia, you dealing with what we call hillbillies.
I didn't want to say the word, but
yeah. Well, that's what we called them. And the hillbillies were a lot different than So you have what we call conservative and progressive whites, right? Progressive whites are easier to deal with, right? They're okay with slavery being over, right? Conservative whites wish that we were still in antebellum and slavery was still in existence, right? So when you go into the deep South, what I call the dirty South, right? Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas, that's what you encounter. So it's very different, right? The COs are very different. Um, at the end of the day, they have a job, but some of them overdo their job, and
Exactly.
you can tell they have definite biases towards you. But you know,
Okay. And since she brought it up, I got to get a touch on this real quick. You being, like I said, a so-called black man in this society, how do you deal with, people when you can see those biases, or when okay, you walk into this establishment and people looking at you crazy, or you go to this bank or you go to this meeting and what should be done, but of course you got some barriers. How do you deal with it being, because I mean basically it's challenging sometimes being who we
yeah,
are
it is. It
with
is.
people who still, once again, wish slavery is still there. So how do you deal
Yeah,
with situations like that? Because I know, once again, the cliche, all white people ain't bad. I know that, but
yeah.
when you run into those, how do you deal with
Man, I
it?
haven't ran into a lot, right? And I think it has a lot to do with my size, right? Because I'm kind of a big dude, right? So
Okay.
they kind of like, they don't. I think they look at me and they be like, "Nah, we ain't gonna try this one," right? So
Yeah.
I've encountered probably one or two situations when I had to deal with a Karen, which is what they call them.
Yeah.
Karens are those, you know, I don't want to
Yeah.
deal with that. But anyway, I don't run it. I don't encounter that much, and I kind of stay out of areas that are known for that type. I don't stop it and get gas at certain gas stations, right?
Even
Because I
in
want
North
to be.
Carolina, right? There are still those
Oh yeah,
places.
in North Carolina. This is
Yeah.
North Carolina and Virginia, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I hated the fact that when I'm going into Virginia, I have to see a big rebel flag
Yeah.
flying.
Right up there
Like,
by green, like
yeah. Right when you get in
Martinsville and
like
Danville.
past Danville, man.
Yeah.
Those signs of the of the South that aren't the good signs of the South. Yeah, you encounter them, and I kind of keep going, and I stay away from 'em. I don't get gas at their gas stations. I'm not eating in their rest. I keep going until I get somewhere that's a little more progressive, where I feel safe.
Okay.
So like I say, increase and decrease. It
Okay.
increases my chances of running into an issue if I do something in this town. So yeah, I stay out of those pockets um, of our southern states.
Definitely, Felicia Mitchell said, "Continue to let your steps be ordered by the Lord." But so we're gonna end it because I keep on going, man. I know both of us got a schedule tomorrow, but I want to thank each and every one: Felicia, Terrence, Rochelle, Nicole, Mama, Aletta, Miss Jen, Miss Simmons, Sierra, Mike Best, Nicole Parks, Cynthia, everyone, man, Alana Moore, Kate Nichelle Smith, Christy McMillan. I thank y'all so much, man. Mike Best again, man. Shalonda Exum, Patrick Williams, man. I appreciate Sharice Board, Everett McNair, man. I really appreciate everyone who's tuned in. Not only this show, but to all the shows. So we're gonna. She said Danville is horrible. About the historic building. I hate that big race. I'm with
Yeah.
you, sis. I'm with you, Jen. I'm telling you,
Mhm.
but we got to keep pushing, man. And I'm working on a project right now with a guy who, was instrumental in getting, some of the racist names from the UNC buildings removed.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
UNC buildings, and you'll be surprised, man, of who those people. I've been doing the research, man. Over 40 of those buildings are named after people who were just,
Cool.
terrible human beings.
Hmm.
And, we as black people, we go to those schools and we highly tout, these universities who a lot of them had direct ties to slavery. But that's a whole nother story,
Yeah.
it's a whole nother subject. But yeah, man, I just want to thank everybody, man. Thank you. Thank you. Good night as well. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Parks. Once again, if you want to leave anything with our YouTube, Facebook audience, feel free.
All right, thank you, man. Have a good one.
All right, man. Y'all be blessed. Y'all have a good night, man. Peace and love. I'll see y'all next week. Got Dante Sharp. Now, many people don't know about Dante Sharp, but he was in Greenville. He lives in Greenville. Well, he did live in Greenville. He was sentenced to 2 life sentences for a crime he didn't commit in 2019. I think he was let out after 24 years of being wrongfully convicted and having to spend 24 years of his life in a prison. So you don't want to miss next week as well. Once again, just make sure you tune in. Also, once again, go to the YouTube and like and subscribe to the channel. And also, once again, go to CarlosSpeaks.com. Carlos Parks Speaks. And once again, don't forget to put all your information in the comments on the video, so anybody who needs your information can check y'all out. But y'all have a good night, man. We'll see y'all next week.